Live from Renmark, this is Paul Murray Live, Our Town.
G'day Australia and welcome to this magnificent town called Renmark. G'day everyone, love you to be here. Thank you very much. We right now are the Yango family winemakers, but they do so much more than that. We'll have a meet and greet with them in a few moments' time. But from the second we turned up here, we felt at home, and that would be exactly the same experience that you are going to have. Can I say, in the first 30 seconds of the show, yes, there was a flood around here 6 months ago, but the joint is open, it is thriving, there is not a blade of grass in the wrong place. Renmark wants to see you, right? You want people to come here. We will celebrate this region in a moment or two's time, but I wanted to try to put a whole bunch of things together at the start of the show that are part of why maybe we're feeling a little bit anxious, a little bit different, a little bit discombobulated at the moment. Now, the reality is, for months and months and months, I've been telling you that about half of the country believes that we're headed in the wrong direction. Now, in reality, most people assume that to be the economy, but I think if we're being really honest, it's about literally everything. It is about society, it is about values, a whole collection of things. Or, to put it more simply, remember this ad?
9, 10.
Not happy, Jan!
We remember it, right? Well, of course, cost of living front and centre is one of those examples about why we aren't happy, Jan, right? Why we are frustrated, why we understand that we're part of a bigger world and a bigger country and there's lots more complicated things that happen. Like, why does your power bill have to be so high? Oh, that's right, because we're getting rid of the thing that worked and replacing it with the thing that makes us feel good. But businesses have to pay way through the roof. Petrol, they bang on about it every single night. This government's apparently about to boost another surplus. Well, could they cut some petrol taxes so there's some relief somewhere, particularly for people in places like Renmark that are going to drive a fair way to Mildura, let alone Adelaide or anywhere else in between? Well, we learned today via the Courier Mail that there's a significant number of people, particularly in Queensland, that are right on the line. Now, this matters. It's not just about politics, it's just about a reference to how our fellow Australian is doing. Now, of course, in Canberra, they're happy because we're getting ready for another second budget surplus. If we go off to a federal election, we give ourselves a good gold star, we mark our own homework, how good are we? But the reality for Australia right now is that 1 in 4 Queenslanders are on the edge of financial risk, and a third are worried about if they can make the mortgage repayment or the rental repayment. The reality, of course, of the Reserve Bank right now when it comes to interest rates is that even if nothing happens this month and nothing happens next month, you still have to find somewhere between $15,000 and more than $30,000 than before this bloke became the Prime Minister to actually pay off on top of everything else you had to pay off before. But the polling for the Courier Mail, let's continue on with that here, suggests that 80% of Queenslanders are resorting to stringent cost-cutting measures. We're now not cutting fat, we're cutting down to the bone. Because more than half are now saying that they're reducing the amount that they are spending on food as a way of being able to financially survive. Young people are being whacked particularly, with 22% of people telling the pollsters, aged between 18 and 34, that they were close to a financial breaking point. Another 10% admit that they're already there. Why does half of the country feel that we're headed in the wrong direction? I told you before. About 2 million Australians, sorry, my apologies, about 9 million Australians have got less than $1,000 in the bank. Of those, most have got $210 in the bank. Oh, but the government's managing the economy amazingly. Perhaps another reason why we think things are headed in the wrong direction is the sheer number of people that this government in particular is bringing into the country. Now, they'll tell us they need it because there's not enough skilled welders and there's not enough this and there's not enough that. And of course, immigration plays a role. All of us have some connection to family from somewhere else. And again, I say for the smart asses that are watching and marking my homework and about to send it off to the umpire, it's not about where you come from. It's not about what you believe. It's not about your skin colour, all of that stuff. When I talk about immigration, I simply talk about a joint that's got 27 million people in it with infrastructure from when we had 20 million people in it. And if we're going to be moving towards 40 million people in a couple of decades' time, we're probably going to have to build a few more hospitals, some slightly wider roads. We have to have more housing. Again, right now, the pressure that's on Australian housing right now is obvious because just the kids moving out of the homes of the previous generation, let alone the hundreds of thousands of people that are being brought in, it is causing trouble, which is why people think we're headed in the wrong direction. And an opinion poll is now starting to match the same when it comes to attitudes towards mass migration and big migration, hence why Albo's trying to pretend that they're trying to sort of put it back in the horse. But the reality is record month of January, record month of February. And according to the Redbridge polling, which is a lefty polling group, political attitudes of Australians towards immigration are now starting to turn hostile. Again, not because people are afraid of people who sound different than the way their parents do, or what they believe in, and all of that stuff that Channel 2 will try and convince us is some sort of dog whistle on racism. It's because 70% are now saying it's harder for young people to buy a house. 45% of voters say that they'd be likely or much more likely to vote for a party that is committed to seriously cutting immigration. Perhaps another reason why half the country doesn't think we're in the right place is, of course, social cohesion. It's not normal for Australia to have teenagers that were born here to be plotting with other teenagers that were born here to commit acts of gross violence on people who don't believe in the same version of a religion, let alone people who don't believe in the same religion. You know what happened last week in Sydney. About half a dozen kids ended up getting arrested, charged, after the stabbing of a religious leader in Western Sydney. Now, this isn't normal, it's not okay, it's the line too far, but that's nothing to do with immigration. That's to do with what is being learnt by those kids in part about how they're being sent nutty by some of the stuff that's on the internet. Just today, the police gave us some details about what the apparent plot was.
Ongoing investigation has revealed connections to that person, and as has been identified, we've arrested 5 young men before the courts, and so I can say very little about that, but they are associated with him but not necessarily connected to the church incident. We have alleged in the facts that there was a group planning a future event. There were 13 search warrants done, 12 persons of interest, and 5 are currently before the court, so it is very much a live investigation.
But of course, what did this Prime Minister do before all of that stuff took place? You see, because he thought that radical Islamic terrorism was a thing of John Howard's era, he decided to get rid of the head of ASIO and the head of ACES from the National Security Committee of Cabinet. Instead, guess who gets a run? Somebody from the Department of Climate Change. And they think that rather than going after radicalisation, the thing they have to go after is misinformation.
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 The misinformation which is there.
Some misinformation.
And rather than firing up and speaking on the behalf of all of us, regardless of faith or no faith, the Prime Minister does not speak this passionately about the people and the forces that are radicalising kids that were born here. He does not speak with such passion as he does about bashing up on Elon freaking Musk.
It just shows his arrogance. This is an egotist, totally out of touch. He clearly sees this as a vanity project for himself.
And of course, this government, rather than, again, trying to walk the talk and get aggressive about going about radicalisation, instead it's about trying to censor the internet. And good on the people who decided to push back this weekend. Now, we can have some conversation about whether the most extreme of crimes end up online or not, but you and I both know that the same people who've always wanted people like me and channels like this off the air will try to use misinformation as the way to be able to slowly but surely stop the spread of the data that we show you each and every night. We know that the plan is that if they don't approve of the website because it says the things that the government does not believe to be the line each and every day, and we saw it during COVID, then they go after the social media companies and they say, we'll fine you $500,000 if you keep that stuff up. And then slowly but surely, surprise, surprise, the algorithm gets turned around and says, anything from that website gone, disappear. And I like that people push back this weekend On Friday, it was actually quite funny, as a bunch of people were doing their versions of memes about the greatest Prime Minister of all time, where they were making the most of their freedom to take the piss. They were making their freedom to turn around and just joke about it while you can, before they turn around and say, no, that will not be allowed. So you have a government, again, blowing up about what you can and can't post to the internet. Whether you can or can't push back on the government, that'll go nuts and deluxe about people like Elon Musk. Where is such aggro about some of the protests that have been happening in Australia? Now, quite rightly, the people that were rioting out the front of that church after the bishop got stabbed in Western Sydney, police went back through the footage, they found them and they've arrested and charged some of them. Has that happened about the protests out the front of the Opera House? Where the whole fight was it gas the Jews or where's the Jews? Because apparently where's the Jews was a compliment. Like, come on. But you can see this happening. And as you may have seen today, the kids that are currently protesting at Sydney Uni, not a particularly original idea, they're just following what's been happening in the United States. Well, they have now got little kids in Australia to start screaming the things that they have been screaming about the problems that are a world away. If you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, but here it is.
Intifada, Intifada, Intifada. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
5, 6, 7, 8, Israel is a terrorist state.
Yet is the Prime Minister blowing up about the madness of that stuff? No, instead he's pretending the problem is Islamophobia.
Islamophobic, Islamophobia, Islamophobia, Islamophobia.
Maybe a reason why half the country thinks that we're headed in the wrong direction might be our basic safety. Our basic safety. Youth crime is a significant problem around the country. Oh, but according to statistics, it's stable compared to where it was 4.5 years ago. Okay, tell that to the victim of any crime. Again, polling's come out in the past couple of days suggesting that the issue of our safety at home is now starting to become a greater priority. Number one priority for all voters is things like cost of living, but guess what now outranks the environment and climate change as a priority for Australians? Crime and social order. Now that's jumped by 8 points since December. Yet is the Prime Minister going out of his way to say anything or do anything about youth crime? No, instead, we're still pretending climate change is the single biggest issue. Let's put $1 billion in a special fund to hand out in crony capitalism to, among others, a company which one day wants to make solar panels here. Great, I understand, but that company has got its hand out for money from you and I when it's owned by Mike Cannon-Brookes, who's a billionaire, and the multi that is the former Prime Minister, the Ghost. Why is that? Why have they got to hand out to us? Is there going to be $1 billion about making sure that our streets are safer and there's more safety officers, there's extra police, you name it, right? Instead, we can't even have a debate about whether or not a security guard can have pepper spray to be able to respond to what may or may not be happening in the street that day. And he's hoping that for 9 3/4 of their 10 years, they never have to use it. But if it's actually there, then maybe you'll be able to stop a situation before it becomes as bad as what we've been dealing with in Australia recently. Meantime, of course, there's a problem in the Northern Territory. Why does half of the country think we're in the wrong direction? Because we can all see with our own eyes, but the Jedi mind trick, this is not a problem, this is not a problem, is what is being put before us each and every day. Well, the last time Albo went to Alice Springs was in January of, not last year, not this year, but the year before that. He turned up for 5 minutes. He wouldn't have a press conference anywhere but inside a building. He wouldn't talk to people like Jacinta Price. No, they were all hand-picked Labor people. Before, and I'm not joking, he buggers off to the tennis for not 1, not 2, but 3 days. He spends a couple of hours in Alice Springs, 3 days, filling his gob with ice creams and the rest of it, and as a fat bloke, I'm used to it. I'm fine with filling your gob, but I'm not the Prime Minister, okay? And the idea that that was the priority, it gives you the idea about why people feel the joint's not in the right place. Well, obviously, there must be an election coming up soon, because guess who's heading to Alice Springs tomorrow? The Prime Minister. The Prime Minister will be heading there tomorrow and he will be spending a night there. But geez, how brave is he? There's only a curfew in currently that's been in place there for weeks. with police all over the shop, so he's not exactly going to be going in the afternoon when people were causing the problems that they were in the past. And again, with youth crime, what's the response? Oh, let's just magically make youth crime disappear by moving the age of criminal responsibility from 10 to 12, from 12 to 14. Well, I'll give you the tip. The crime still happens, but the person held responsible for it doesn't get held responsible. They're still stealing stuff to pay for drugs, etc., etc. And in Queensland, remember what they did when it came to youth crime. They turned around and decided that 10% of offending should just be wiped off the map by decriminalising the possession of the drugs that were bought after they had stolen stuff. So you don't get a solution. You don't get people that are in the right place. And then today, thousands of women, every capital city in the country, they took to the streets and they, like any good and decent person, has had enough of the number of women who die as a result of low-life bastards in domestic violence. It is never acceptable, it is never okay, it is not okay, there is no grey area, and I say what I say every night. I'd die for the women in my family. I'd die for my friends that are women. I believe that to be the position of, not a majority, like 9.5 out of 10 blokes in Australia. And at that rally today, the anger was visceral, the demands to do more, or the fact that there was not enough being done, was clear. Here's part of what was being said at those rallies today.
We want the government to acknowledge that this is a national emergency.
Stand ground!
Enough is enough. I'm 64 and this saddens me to death.
Just that they deserve to grow up in a safe, supportive country.
This is tough stuff. It ain't fun Sunday night chat. But the reality is that we also have to be very clear here that the Prime Minister thinks that the politics is to stand up and talk in front of the rally and say the nice and cute things. Well, even the people at the rally said, well, we can smell BS from this far away.
We now have 10 days paid domestic. I agree it's not enough. I said that. We need to do more.
You have to put her down to build yourself up.
We have...
You shut down the city for 2 minutes.
We have an escaping violence payment.
Instead, what is his government actually doing? Well, they're not going to have a Royal Commission into this. They've said it themselves. Now, if there is a Royal Commission to be had where we can work out policy issues, then cool, I'm going to support it like every good and decent person. I like the idea the Libs have about using technology for more ankle bracelets. I like the idea of having a serious discussion about uncomfortable stuff like how violent some of the stuff is that's online for people to see and how unpleasant. I won't say it in a room full of delightful people, but still you can all read the headlines. But also it speaks to our general attitudes that rather than dealing with everything at the end of the cycle, perhaps we should have some conversations about the start of the cycle. It doesn't minimise the issue, and I stand by the fact that anyone who would even think about it is a lowlife, and I'd be the first to line up and treat them the way that they should be, of course. But in Australia last year, did you know how many people were actually victims of pretty violent crimes? 358,000 people were the victims of an assault last year. 459,000 people have been threatened face-to-face with an assault. 89,000 people. Now, this is wincing stuff because this isn't Australia, but sadly it is, and it's not acceptable and it's not okay. But you know how we can stop it? Perhaps we should think about more mandatory sentences for lower level crimes, which means we don't get to the end. Perhaps we don't give 5, 6, 7 chances. Perhaps we don't appeal when our kids get suspended at school. Perhaps we have serious politicians who will make tough decisions and risk losing an election to put us back on the right path. Because the majority of citizens love this country and want it to be on the right track, even if they don't like the politician who is the Prime Minister or the Premier. We're in a wrong track for on a whole bunch of reasons. The rubber is hitting the road and we are in a world of pain. But things are not as easy as a press conference and we move away. There are big, tough, difficult problems, and I've never believed that this federal government and certainly this leader is going to be up to it. But they are where they are, and it's up to them whether they get off their dot or not. We'll all find out together. But let's stop dealing with the end of the problem and start trying to prevent it at the very start. All right, happy times now. All right, let's get to it. Let's celebrate Renmark. Okay, that's why we're here. Thanks to the wonderful people of Harvey Norman. Let's celebrate this beautiful part of regional South Australia. Again, I'll repeat it, I'll say it 1,000 times. They're open for business, and when you get here, there's plenty of businesses that will make your day. Country footy is one of the great things to do when you're in places like Renmark, and when you're in Renmark, it's all about the Rovers. Family and friends get together to see the people who live and work inside their communities become heroes on a Saturday afternoon with every kick.
The meeting place on a Saturday, everyone comes together.
It's just a good family atmosphere, good afternoon with your mates. It's a good opportunity, it's in front of me, and try not to overthink it and just play.
We've been playing, I guess, together in the A grade for a few years now, but you know, forever as kids. So,
and for me, who's not from the area, like it's a family that's welcomed me and my family here now, and we're absolutely part of it now.
We've got an 80-year-old bloke that plays for us, so we cringe when the ball goes near him because we just don't know to sort of knock him over, and otherwise it could be a bit ugly on the field, yeah. But no, he's having fun. No, yeah, he's having fun, yeah.
Tony, lovely to meet you.
You too.
Tell us what it was like to play here.
Well, this is what it was all about, country footy, so I loved it. I did actually all my junior football through Loxton, and then I had a chance to play with my brothers in 1990 up here at Renmark.
The importance of country footy to community, what do you think it means and why you reckon it's so important?
Oh, it's grassroots football, isn't it? I mean, you do see these country clubs that fold, which is sad to see because they have so much history behind, but it's good to see, you know, the SANFL try and help them and make it happen. So, no, I love it. It was good coming back after I finished football, just to come back to a local level and just realise what it's all about, the passion.
And after a spectacular afternoon at the footy, it's time to cruise the River Murray. Rob and Jerna from River Murray Houseboats are our hosts. This is their houseboat. This is one of the great natural wonders of the country, let alone South Australia, and this is heaven. Come look at this. Well, this is a terrible office, isn't it?
It's not bad, is it?
When you see people come from Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, whatever, they sort of all rush, and you can see after a couple of days when they get off.
It forces you to relax on
Rancho,
this.
yeah.
You're just driving and meandering up the river. There's actually nothing to do other than just sit back and take it in. So it forces people to relax.
That sounds like an instruction, Captain. The mighty Murray. Hold my calls. I'm really busy. Wow. Location, and it's a family business. It's been around for a very long period of time. Both of you are very excited to talk about it, and we're very excited to have you here. All right, Victoria and John Yango are here. The family connection, John, when did this joint start as a winery and then so much more?
Oh, it goes back nearly 140 years, Paul, to my great-grandfather who established the business in Tea Tree Gully, which then was a suburb or remote from Adelaide. It's now suburban Adelaide. And he started a winery down there. He was a doctor. He made wine for his patients, being well aware of the therapeutic value of wine.
Correct.
That what basically began as a hobby eventually overtook his medical activities, and he decided that he would make wine as a way of life. And it has progressed since then through the generations, and we are here today.
And now it's a place that has got several businesses attached to it, lots of different things, but where is it in 2024 compared to where it started?
Oh, we've had an incredible journey, Paul, and I think the best is still to come, to tell you the truth. So I'm a part of the 5th generation. My brother and I are involved in the business, and our sister Sophie as well is involved in the viticulture side, which is pretty exciting. So to get to 5 generations, I think is pretty momentous. And right now we are Australia's leading organic grape grower and winemaker. We also are incredibly lucky that we have the St Agnes Distillery. So that was initially we started distilling here in Renmark in about 1910. And then St Agnes Brandy, which is Australia's leading brandy, started in 1925. So next year we'll be celebrating a centenary of the St Agnes Distillery.
And I can confirm its quality. Mention my name, pay for the price, as I always say. It's
and I didn't force it on you, I'm sure.
No, you were lovely. But can we find the great... I want a bit of history here, all right? That, of course, what was the year and how did cask wine become the option? Because this literally is
absolutely
the OG, the first ever cask of wine, a gallon of wine. Who came up with it?
So my grandfather, Dad's dad, Tom, was a really frustrated engineer and was constantly inventing and very innovative. And I still remember going to his house. It was always an adventure as to what you would find. And he came up with this concept of putting a bag in a box. And there was a lot of convenience to attach with this, and it's gone on, obviously, to be globally a very mainstream way of delivering wine to consumers, and often really great value way of getting wine and having wine that doesn't go off.
Bloody oath, I was going to say, congratulations to the family. From this to Mighty Exos and a whole bunch of
a very diverse business.
Glorious stuff. Thank you for having us here tonight. I really do appreciate it.
Such a pleasure.
I remember when Dad brought that home as a prototype when I was about 14 or 15 years old. And I remember saying to Dad, that will never sell. Who is going to buy wine in a plastic bag inside a cardboard box?
And Australia
get it?
Us!
and so we don't listen to Dad about marketing anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. Good stuff. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Great examples of people who love Renmark and have a business that can change the country. All right, quick break. Back with more, plenty more to talk about. This place is phenomenal in terms of its tourism, its business, its people, its commitment to taking care of each other. We'll celebrate all of that in a moment's time here on Paul Murray Live. Thank you. I appreciate that the clapping started a solid 45 seconds before we were back from break, but you did well. Thank you, everyone. I do appreciate it. All right, now Harvey Norman are the reason that we are able to travel all around the country, and Katie Page and their leadership team are absolutely invested in making sure that women in regional Australia have phenomenal opportunities. So we had the opportunity to go and have a chat to Katie about a program that is changing lives from the city to the smallest towns and everything in between. For many, a good education might only be something one could dream of. And for many people, that's lots of different reasons. From the prohibitive costs to the distance that you'd have to travel. And often the people who are most impacted by these challenges are people from disadvantaged backgrounds. And that's why, after a 10-year pilot program with the Auburn Girls High School in Sydney, Harvey Norman this month has launched a scholarship program with Western Sydney University. The Young Women's Leadership Academy comes with an incredible donation from our mates at Harvey Norman. $7.9 million will be delivered directly to this program over the next 10 years, helping increase the social, economic and educational participation of young women and create tomorrow's leaders. Of the many causes that our dear friend Katie Page from Harvey Norman is involved with, I know she is particularly passionate about this. This is a massive gift that is going to seriously change some people's lives. Tell us, how does it work?
We're 100 scholarships in, and the stories are fabulous. It's refugees, it's disadvantaged women, it's also high achieving women, so it's across the board. I was talking to some of the young ones today and they were thanking me, and I said, no, Jerry and I have got to thank you for the joy that you give us, because you're wanting better lives for yourselves, for your family. You're not just taking this and thinking I should have it. You really respect it and want it.
And when you hear the stories of the kids that this is helping, you know how important all of this is.
I'm really excited about all the opportunities that we're going to get, all of the doors that are going to be open for us, and it provides equity for all of the students who might be underprivileged.
I think for me, it's about working with an organisation that stands by such strong values, such as diversity and women empowerment.
So as a result of my scholarship that I had with Katie Page, I was really able to go 100% into my studies. I was able to focus that and keep that as my primary objective.
Remote regional communities also need support for the creation of educational pathways. Catholic Education South Australia has recognised this too, launching the Regional Teacher Scholarship Program and announcing its first recipients in February.
Some of those students would tell relocating from a regional area as a Year 12 graduate from school is not possible or desirable for a whole range of reasons for many people. So the notion of being able to remain in the community and in the context and to be supported to fulfil a career aspiration is a very good thing.
We caught up with Lane Fenwick, one of 13 regional education support officers to be awarded the scholarship this year, living right here in Renmark.
Being from a rural town, I just thought about the scholarship and, giving me a bit more security to be staying in a rural town as well. We own a vineyard up here, so it means a lot to be able to stay up here with all my family as well. I just don't see myself being anywhere else besides in the country.
Thank you, Katie Page, and all the team at Harvey Norman. Now, keep your applause going because we've got your mayor here and a member of the South Australian Parliament as well. Hello. Now, Nicholas Centofanti is the member of the Legislative Council in South Australia. Peter Hunter is the mayor. I should also say, shout out to these are very valuable tickets, right? Anne Rushton, Senator, she'd like to be here. Tony Passon, local MP, he'd like to be here. The wonderful Nicole Flint, family friend of this program. So they said that you guys were absolutely the best to talk up the representation in the area. So let's talk, Peter, about this area. So I said it at the start of the show, and I want to get it out of the way right now. Renmark had a flood, but it's okay. It is open for business. There are great hotel rooms, and there's not a blade of grass that is out of place.
Certainly. The upkeep of the town is really important to us for visitors and locals alike. And there's a lot of people in this room here who had some very difficult times during the flood, and they all helped to come together to get us through that difficult period, and we're absolutely open for business.
Because, Nicola, it's interesting when you go to Adelaide, and I was talking to some people there yesterday, because there's no update after the flood generally, and it's one of the reasons why we love our towns and coming back to say and do what we're doing right now. Sometimes the attitude is, oh, it's still what it was 6 months ago.
You're right, Paul, and that can be really frustrating as a local. I'm constantly telling my colleagues and anyone will listen that we are absolutely open for business, and we have so many wonderful businesses up here in the Riverland. Whether it's wine, whether it's tourism, whether it's food, there are just such wonderful businesses, and we need to get as many people up here as possible to support them.
Well, it's that thing. So we're you have to argue not just back with the state government, but sometimes sort of there's federal government issues, all the rest of it, right? But the people here, and again, I know it's going to seem like, TV show BS, but it really isn't. The automatic feeling and connection that I had when I came here and had never been here before, right? Let alone people who represent and live here. What's this place like? Like, what's this place when you live here, and why do you want the rest of the country to know about it?
There's a heart to the town. There's a heart to the region. And that came through in the flood very much when people came together and helped, whether it was building levees or supporting each other through it. But it's beyond that. And I think that friendliness that you found when you came here is a great indicator of what these people behind us and around us feel for the town and for each other.
So what does it need going into the future? What's the sort of stuff that we are arguing about?
Oh, look, Paul, for us, it's really about getting the right resources so that, we can make our towns better. What I love about the Riverland, and I've grown up here all my life, is the can-do attitude that the community have. They roll up their sleeves and nothing's too hard. For us, what we're suggesting and what we're asking is just, for everyone to show that support, to really acknowledge the amazing work that the community did throughout that flooding event, and really making sure that these people are well looked after into the future.
Good stuff. Thank you, guys. I do appreciate it. Just a small sample of the types of people who represent this wider, incredible region. Quick break. Back with more, including time to make some gin. having a great time at the Agnes Family Wineries here in Renmark. There is so much to see, so much to do, but also great people to meet. And I want to have a chat to Jack and to Richard as well. Jack, you're a winemaker yourself.
Grape grower.
Grape grower, my apologies. But the mental health of the industry is something worth talking about, and how people, some people are battling. They're battling for a whole bunch of business reasons. You're also a person who has had the toughest of experiences with those that have, I'm sorry about the loss of your son. How important is it that when businesses in regional Australia are starting to get the squeeze, that you hold on?
Oh, Paul, I've been in the industry for 50 years. I'm celebrating actually 50 years in Renmark. This is the biggest challenge the wine industry ever faced, but particularly the grape growers are really under pressure trying to make a financial decision. And they haven't been in that position before. I mean, I'll just give you an example. My income were 220. I was again 370,000. This year I'm down to 100,000.
Wow.
You can't survive on those sort of returns. And somehow the industry and government must sit down and really talk about how we're going to get through this difficult period and get a financial package, whatever it's 2 years, 3 years, things will turn around. That's how industries do.
Yeah.
But to get to that level, we need financial support so we can look after ourselves after that. But right now, we need support.
So people thinking that the wine industry is just sitting pretty and the money's rolling in, it's not the way it is right now.
No, definitely not. There's challenges, whether you're a winemaker or you're a contractor, carriers with truckers, service industries, all sorts. And even our local shops, they find it difficult. So it's right across the board, and our local economy is finding it hard, but the South Australia economy needs a viable wine industry.
Charity is always a big part of regional Australia as well. You're involved with a couple of very significant ones. Tell us about I just keep talking about the beauty of the place and how everything is so well kept, and that comes down to people like yourself and the volunteers as well in and around festivals. So tell us about some of the gardening related stuff.
Well, the Riverland Rose and Garden Festival is celebrating 30 years this year, and since its inception it's been driven by volunteers. We get some funding from councils to put it on, but it's now Australia's biggest Rose and Garden Festival. Last year we had 27 open gardens, all private gardens, and so they put them on for no cost. You imagine the cost of infrastructure if we didn't have those volunteer gardeners that put that on for us.
So when does the festival happen?
October 18 this year,
yes.
10 days. So if anyone wants to come, they better get in early because accommodation's always pretty tight. But it looks like being another great festival. It survived COVID. In fact, it was the only major event that came through COVID 2 years running.
That's because it didn't have those footballers that had been touched by those awful footballers.
Smelling the roses.
Literally there was, the pizza box. I mean, lock it down. Lads, I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's going to be in October. We'll talk after the show as well about more of the support that the wine industry needs. But I wanted to show a special blend of gin that will be available only from the Man Cave at Sky News. 23rd Street Gin is a Renmark institution. The brand is known across the country, but this distillery in particular has a rich history and has products of all different flavours. But it's time for them to have their greatest creation yet, the Paul Murray blend. Jamie's the man here at the distillery who's going to take us through a pretty special process where at the end of it there will be a special Paul Murray blend of gin. Come in here, mention my name, pay full price. Jamie, lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Paul.
Well, let us make some gin. What do we need to do?
How accurate you reckon of a pourer you are, Paul?
Oh, precise.
All right, wicked. That is what I love to hear. So, we got this little flask there.
Thank you.
I want you to try and pour 10 to 12 mils of this juniper extract into that thing there. And if you're not feeling too confident, you're more than welcome to use that pipette.
No, we'll give it a crack here.
Oh, no, that's precise.
Well, we've got...
Cool, so we've got a spice, we've got 2 citruses. I reckon we'll try and do sort of 4 or 5 botanicals. try and get up to 20 mils, which means we have, what's that? Seven mils of wiggle room.
Okay.
So, of the 4 you got there,
yeah.
I reckon you're more than welcome to grab your pipette, dip it in, and then sort of...
Is this the pipette?
Yep, grab that one there.
I can conduct an orchestra or perform an operation. So is this alcohol or is this flavouring?
That is alcohol as well, I believe. If you'd like to try a bit of it, you'll get a bit of a bitey flavour. It's quite strong as well.
Oh wow, the non-drinker just goes, yeah, I'll just inject it.
Alrighty, well there's our Paul Murray gin. So what we're going to do next is there's a way to go about tasting these. It's very particular with gin.
Is it slightly different than the way I've been tasting it before?
It's unorthodox, that's for sure. So we'll move on to something a bit more traditional. Just yeah, give it a sip, see what you think.
Okay. Geez, I've nailed that. I've absolutely nailed it. Jamie, please.
Thank you. Well, I think we could just about bottle that up and sell it, to be honest.
Thank you. Thank you. I win a gin. I win a gin. This is the official bottle. It's incredibly rare. And again, if you ever make it to the man cave, you can have a little nip of that right now. All right, now. One of the greats of Renmark is a man called Dean Semler. Dean won an Academy Award as the cinematographer on the film Dances with Wolves. He grew up here. It is still such a fond part of his life, and we had a chat about it from his home in LA.
I was very lucky. What a great town. I mean, and you don't appreciate it when you're a kid, but in hindsight, looking back, I was so lucky. I mean, it was so pure and friendly, and it was just such a wonderful, wonderful town to be brought up in. You know, it was healthy and lots of friends. It wasn't too big, only about 7,000 people. I was very lucky to be brought up there, and I really appreciate it now more than I did then. I think it was, even though I've been back a couple of times, I haven't been back now for, goodness me, about 10 years. When I was last there, I visited some children who wanted me to teach them how to make movies. It was still the same. It was better. It was different. It was, but it was still the same old Renmark, the same community spirit, the same sort of warmth of people and friendship. It's a special place.
I know it's really hard to put into words, but what for you is so special about making movies?
And they remain like, it's like working with a family. I did Apocalypto with Mel in Mexico. We were there for 8 months, believe it or not. 8 months in the jungle. Best experience of my life ever. Forget it. Mel was the man. He was in charge, and he had to say from day to day. And I remember coming back to my home here after 8 months being away, and my wife Annie said, "You're walking around bumping into bloody walls. What are you doing?" I said, "Look, I've lived with a family for 8 months, 7 days a week, waking up every day and seeing them all, seeing them having dinner at night, working all day. It's hard to get away from that. It's hard to forget that, And she said, "Well, go and see your friends out at Panavision. Go and have a bloody talk to them." It's a wonderful career. God knows I envy anybody who can be lucky enough to do what I did. What I'm hopefully going to do a little bit more of, I don't know for sure, but we'll see.
Dances with Wolves is, of course, your most decorated film. You won the Academy Award for it. It, of course, was directed by Kevin Costner. The sweeping landscapes of America remain sumptuous images to this very day. After you'd made the film, you'd hoped maybe that this was going to be awards worthy, but when did you start to realise this might be the one?
No, I was actually shooting a film with Billy Crystal called City Slickers in New Mexico, Arizona somewhere. And it was like just prior to the Academy Awards coming out, and Billy said, they're talking about this Dances with Wolves film you did. They're saying it might get a few nominations. So there was a seed planted there. And I was back in Sydney But I got a call like at 1 o'clock in the morning from the producer, Jim Wilson, who said, "Mate, you're one of 12. We got 12 nominations. Congratulations." And I pinched myself and woke up Annie and my daughter, and we realised it was true. And then from then on, wow, the ball started rolling. And, you know, the Americans really know how to celebrate success. Boy, what a time that was for a few weeks or a few months after the nominations for the awards, etc. It was just cost a lot of money, but it was good. And I hoped when the announcement came from Glenn Close, who announced that I was up against 4 or 5 of the greatest cinematographers in the world, the Godfather, Dick Tracy, some Avalon. These are the top guys that all won Academy Awards, and there was me. And the name came up.
And the Oscar goes to Dean Semler, Dances with Wolves.
And I leapt out of my seat, which Annie has never forgiven me for because I didn't kiss her and let the camera see her. And went up, and I was just hoping that my fly was done up and that my voice would work, you know. But it was it was a wonderful evening. It was just a fabulous evening, and it was the one of many. And it meant a lot to me then, but it meant more to me when I got on a Qantas flight to come home. I didn't realise how important it was to Australia. I got on a Qantas flight flying home, and the stewardess, the hostess, came up and said, "Mr. Semler, do you have it with you?" And I said, she said, "The Oscar." And I said, "Yes, I've got it and some other awards." She said, "Do you mind showing it to the captain and to the passengers?" And I said, "Oh, I don't." Then I got to want somebody waking them up after 7 hours flying. They're all cranky, showing them a trophy. She said, "I think you'll find they'll like it." And they did. It was like, it was goosebumps when I walked down. It meant so much to my fellow Australians. It really did.
Renmark, no, very, very good. Thanks so much. Thrilled to talk to you. Quick break. Back with more here on Paul Murray Live in Renmark, where we will reflect upon the football career of one Chris King. Renmark, thank you so much for what has been a lovely night together. It is just a taste of a spectacular part of the world. And again, I want to thank the Yango family very much so. This is their big seller. Get behind it. They love a good red here. They are very good people. There we go. The full bottle, full sale. Again, as always, I say it for the 3rd time tonight. Mention my name and pay full price. It's, you know, it's a special trick whenever you turn up. But anyway, thank you very much for taking care of us tonight. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to the people of Renmark who have been so kind, so lovely. Thank you. Who came from Bendigo, by the way? Was it where? Give us a shout out, lovely. A bloke drove all the way from Bendigo. I appreciate it. I think he thought that Kyle was here, or the fat guy from The Hangover. But alas, I appreciate that you made your way all your way here. We're looking forward to our next Our Town. And again, thank you so much to Harvey Norman. Without their support for regional Australia, we're unable to show you the best of it. The idea of this show is to always come when times are normal, so you can plan a holiday, or maybe even think about uprooting from where you are in the cities and come and live in a place like Renmark. They would make you feel very welcome and very loved. We've had a spectacular weekend. Thank you so much again to Renmark. We'll see you again tomorrow night from the Man Cave. We've got plenty to fire up about, including, of course, as always this week, Megan Kelly will be there, Nigel Farage and all of our other guests. Renmark, thank you very much. We'll see you soon. See you tomorrow night. And here is the Royal Report on Sky News.